During the late 1970s, John Armand would sit down in front of his TV every day to watch a brand new episode of Sesame Street. John absolutely adored the show, except for one short segment. A little girl made friends with the cracks in her wall, and while on the wall, she stumbles upon the Crack Master. Long limbs, a scary face, and a mean attitude, it, without much time, crumbles away, leaving nothing but a few brown boards. I remember really eerie, off-key music and these creatures, John said on the Studio 360 podcast with Kurt Anderson. There was a camel, and I remember that there was a monkey that were supposed to be kind of the good guys, but scared me almost as much as what ended up being the monster. He kind of looks like a starburst, like almost how a little kid would draw the sun. He's the most ominous crack of all, because the music changes, and it becomes even louder and more off-key and more unnerving, and he eventually tries to scream and make himself mean, and then he crumbles, and there's this plaster behind him, and it said he destroyed himself trying to be mean. I guess the message they were trying to get across is don't be mean and your face might crumble. It was terrifying that something that was, in somebody's wall came to life, and I remember in my own bedroom I had wallpaper, but some of that wallpaper was a little old and it was coming off in some spots, and I just knew that, one of these days something's going to be behind there, and it was going to get me, and I don't know if that's what they intended to have kids think, but it was enough to stick with me for 30-some years after that. John never forgot the cartoon, and he would always try to find it and see it. Well, after 30 years, he would finally be able to watch the Crack Monster. An anonymous source had become aware of some of the efforts that John had undertaken in order to find the Crackmaster cartoon, and they had called him through a fax number while John was at a radio station. "We have the copy," said the voice on the other end. Apparently, this anonymous source was in possession of a DVD copy of the Crackmaster short, and they were willing to give it to John under one circumstance. He had to sign legal documents that stated that if John were to ever receive the short, he was not allowed to publish it on the internet or send it to anyone, ever. There were no exceptions. They stated that they wanted to keep the cartoon under secrecy, and they hoped that nobody else would be able to see it. Now, John had been thinking about this short for an extremely long time, and so obviously he agreed to the terms. He signed the papers, and soon, the short arrived in his mailbox. John then popped the DVD into the player and watched, carefully. John stated that the copy he had received seemed to have been taken from a recording of an actual episode, because before the short started, a 2-second clip of a Bert and Ernie skit played, which seemed strange. If this was, according to the anonymous source, the copy of the cartoon, then it seemed quite unprofessional to have a bit of a previous segment bleed into it. It also seemed strange why this copy in particular was being handled so secretly. You know how earlier I mentioned that John thought that CTW was trying to cover up the cartoon and how he had evidence to prove it? Well, this was the evidence. These same people said that they were trying to keep the short behind bars so the public couldn't view it, which begs the question. Was CTW the company that sent John the copy of Crackmaster? We may never know. John watched as the narrator spoke. While laying in her bed, the cracks overhead more and more looked like a camel. And in the blink of an eye, it was over. John had finally seen the cartoon that had scared him for so many years. He had felt so relieved to have finally seen it, and so he wanted to share that feeling with others, but he was contractually obligated not to post it. So instead, John decided to record a 9-minute and 16-second long audio documentary explaining how the cartoon had went. John would then proceed to send the documentary to people who asked him about the short. John states the following in the audio. One of the things that's interesting is the way people tend to remember this clip, myself included. One of the biggest questions I had in searching for it was this difference between Crack Monster and Crack Master, because it seemed kind of split halfway down the middle. Some people referred to it as Crack Monster, some people as Crack Master. I was of the Crack Monster persuasion. I didn't remember anything about it being Crack Master, but he does identify himself in the clip as Crack Master. John, although proving that people were right about the big evil crack being named Crack Master, that was not the name of the short at all. In fact, John wasn't even allowed to say what the title of the short was, as it was another obligation in the papers that he signed. John also states as follows. The clip, as I thought, was not in black and white. It was in fact in color, although not much color. The girl is black, as I said in one of my posts. I remember her being a black girl. A lot of people remembered frizzy hair. It's not really frizzy hair, more of a kind of a tight afro. The girl is wearing pink pants and the pink sweater, pink socks and brown slippers. She's not really a girl at all. She looks more like a woman, which is weird. A lot of people say that they remember her being older. You're right, she was older. And the animals. First a camel, and then a hen, and then a monkey. And most people remembered a camel and a monkey and some sort of bird. It was indeed Crack Hen. What's interesting, though, is I remember the house being just this horrible, dilapidated building, making it even more eerie and sad. Well, it wasn't at all. It was just one crack above her head, and that's what made a lot of people think the cracks were on the ceiling. Well, no, the cracks were on the wall, but simply just above her head. Only a bed appears in the house at all. That's all you can see. No other furniture, just a bed. And the crack monster himself, unlike some of what I showed up on YouTube, doesn't look like Shrek or a human being. It looked more like a jack-o'-lantern or a starburst, as somebody said. Despite all of the information provided in John's documentary and his claims that he had acquired the cartoon, most people didn't believe that he had it. First of all, not everybody was able to listen to John's audio documentary. Only the people who asked for information from him heard it until August 29, 2013, when Jennifer Bourne sent it to Diekate, founder of the Lost Media Wiki, who also played an important role in the discovery of Crackmaster, and he posted the audio to YouTube. And secondly, it seemed kinda strange that he wasn't allowed to post it anywhere. This led people to believe that John didn't have it, and that he said he wasn't allowed to post it as an excuse. However, doubters would be proved wrong when John offered to show the short to Jennifer Bourne, and soon, she too would see the cartoon. Hello all you pillow people, welcome to the end of episode 7 of Pillowcast, and this is episode 2 of the missing crack cartoon, I think is what they called it. But yeah, so that was part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Chapter 3 is going to be coming soon. I had to write this one out quick because I don't know how much time I have at my grandma's house to print out pictures and whatnot. So this is just what I have. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. If you're enjoying this, then leave me a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you guys are listening to this. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and stay fluffy.